Hello and welcome to all my fantastic 5th grade artists, and welcome to all parents who are watching as well. Today guys, I'm going to show you how we're going to transfer our images that we've drawn from our interests and our personality onto our portraits. So there's 3 pages that I want you to have out in front of you today guys. First of all, you're going to have all of the drawings that you made when you wrote down your interests. So you wrote down your interests. So I written down, just to go over it again, nature, books, video games, football, films, Italian culture, art, cats, and music. And you can see I've got all my drawings here that I've made for it, okay? The next sheet that I want you to have out in front of you is your portrait that you've started. So guys, you should be at this stage with your portrait. You should have had the whole portrait drawn out. You should have looked at the selfie you were drawing from, try to get it as accurate as you can. But remember, don't worry, you're only drawing to how well you can do it, and there's no right or wrong way of doing it. And then what I'd like you to have done is to have shaded half the face. So what I'd really like you to do is make sure you're up to that point until we carry on for the rest of the lesson. If you need to still do some things, still add some drawings, still add some shading, you can pause the video, do that now, and then get ready for what we're going to do later on. Okay guys, the last sheet you're going to have is a sheet of a plan of how you're going to draw your objects from your list of interests onto your portrait. So as you can see, this is my practice go, and I've made all of the objects that I've used and I've put them onto my portrait. And I've just done this, guys, so I can show you how to put them onto your portrait first. So you don't need to necessarily make a whole new portrait like I've done and then draw the objects on again. But what I've done here is I'm just showing you how we can arrange them onto the page, okay? So it should be, from this page here, you should all have a page like this with all the drawings from your interests. And now, what we're going to do is we're going to work out how we're going to arrange them and put them onto our portrait. So, everybody should have one like this. Okay, so now what we're going to do onto this portrait, onto this area here, we are going to draw all of our objects that we've made last week, okay? So what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm just going to go through with you and show you how we can layer our drawing onto a portrait, okay? So what I thought I'd do guys, is I'd show you how I used my kind of compositional skills to put down all the different objects on top of each other, and how I want my piece to now look almost like it's 3D kind of coming off the page. So what I'm going to do one by one is I'm going to show you, I'm going to outline it with a black marker just to show you how you might go about layering on your image. So I'm going to start with the object that I started drawing with first. So the first drawing that I started with was my drawing of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and I thought this would make a really good compositional effect in the middle of the page, because I've got this kind of shape of the tower kind of going from very broad at the bottom to going quite narrow at the top, and that actually works quite well as a shape for a nose. So what you can do is you can draw it on very lightly, and then on the side which is not shaded already, you can kind of divide it up. I'm just showing you. So now I've got my shaded side, and you can see where I've put it onto my drawing. Okay, let's move on to the next step. Okay guys, so the next thing that I drew was my artist palette and my artist brush. And you can see that what I've done is I have put my artist palette around the eye of my portrait. And what it does, it means that I can still incorporate parts of the drawing underneath, and it gives that 3D effect, that 3D layering. So it looks like this object is actually in front of my portrait. It looks like it's coming towards us, the viewer. And now because I've drawn these two on top of my portrait, it means that I can put objects underneath, like my football, my Game Boy, and the book, and I've got my mountains down here. So I'm just going to show you one by one how they're layered on top of each other. Okay guys, so you can see now that I've gone through stages to layer my objects on top of my portrait, and now I've got quite a pleasing 3D effect. It looks like my objects are really coming off the page, and because they're on top of each other, because they're behind, some parts are hidden, and I've still got part of the original portrait in there, the eye, I've created this really interesting kind of dynamic composition where kind of different parts of the page, they're not all lined up, they're moving about. It looks like it could be a kind of realistic imagination of like what's going on in our heads, and like what you could say about someone's interests or personalities. I thought the using the mountains is quite a good technique to kind of get in the kind of lower half of your neck and your shoulder if you wanted to incorporate that part, and it kind of makes just kind of gives us a few more options. You know, it means also maybe you could draw, you know, a few clouds maybe if you wanted to incorporate that and kind of make it kind of surreal, kind of fantasy kind of composition. I think that would be quite interesting. I don't know, it's up to you guys. The very last thing I did, and you can see I still kind of kept with the how, you know, I've got my original portrait here, and then you can see I've got I've laid things on top, and to keep within the kind of rules of how I've made my portrait, I wanted to add in at the very end my interest in cats. Well, my you know, something personal to me can make, you know, makes the portrait a bit more personal. And I've actually drawn, just really simply, the kind of cat's mouth and whiskers over on this side where you can see where my mouth is on that side. And now you've just created a kind of a quite interesting contrast between the two sides. On this side, you've got your really well-drawn, nicely shaded portrait, and on this side, you've kind of got all these kind of crazy elements going on, and it's a really nice contrast, guys, and I think this is going to look really good when we're finished. Okay, so now I've shown you this part, let's move on to actually putting it onto our finished portrait. Okay guys, so we've got our final portrait in front of us. We've got half the shading done, and then we've still got half the face drawn out in a kind of very light pencil. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put my original drawing, my original plan drawing, over the top, just to show you guys. And now I'm going to keep it very close to me, and I'm going to refer back to it all the time while I'm drawing. So I'm going to have the two. I'm going to put them side by side, or maybe just one. You know, I can have it side by side by each other, or I can put it, you know, just where I can see it while I'm still drawing. And so I've got a really good composition to work from. And what we've got now as an advantage, guys, is we're working in pencil. So as I was working in pen before, I was just doing it very roughly, doing it very quickly just to show you guys. But now we're doing it in pencil. We've got some time that we can kind of add to our drawing, take things away that we're not happy with, and make the transitions between the different parts of it more softer. So what I'm going to start by doing is doing the nice kind of light outline. And again, I always do a really light outline for my drawings. And I realise I want to keep the kind of look of the Leaning Tower a little bit more leaning in the composition. So you can see I'm drawing a really light outline around the nose. I'm not kind of going over too much of what I've shaded. Just giving that nice rough outline so you can see the tower and how I'm kind of putting it into my piece. Okay? Okay guys, so do you see now how I'm starting to blend the two of the drawings of kind of getting this side which has not got any shading at all, and I'm starting to blend my drawings in with the shaded side of the portrait, so it's not completely just like cut off at this line. So I'm kind of crossing over a little bit, so it's creating a kind of interesting illusion now. So let's try and layer up the different parts of the drawing. Okay guys, so you can see now that I'm adding in those elements that I did on my plan. And what I'm doing is I'm doing that outline, not doing it too dark, but I'm just doing it enough that I'm happy where it is. And as you can see, I'm not going any further with the shading than I've got right there, because what I want to do next week with you guys is I want to start to do some colouring and like adding colour to our portrait. So what I'm going to do this week is just show you how we add on those elements, and then by the end of the lesson we'll have a portrait ready to be coloured. So I'm just going to do the rest for you now so you can see that how I might balance my composition in my final portrait.